Hello, guys. I'm here. I'm Dr. Anatole, and I'm here with Mike, who is behind the camera. We're still experimenting with Zoom, and we have another topic or so to talk to you about. So, what do you have in mind, Mike?
Well, for today's topic, I thought I could ask, or maybe we could talk about what can we learn from astrological edutainment?
Oh, this is a it's a good topic to ask me. Number one, I'm not a professional astrologer, and notice what I just said, professional astrologer. But two of my good friends are. One is a good astrologer, another one is a professional astrologer. So first of all, let's look at the astrology. What is it? And then analyze it from this point of view. Let's analyze what's happening when you open a newspaper. So there are several systems of astrology. The one we use in the West, they use in the West because I don't use it, is Arabic astrology from the time from like Middle Ages, and in India they have their own system, which is similar but not the same. And the idea behind astrology is that the planets somehow symbolically and more so energetically, they correspond to certain feelings, vibrations, influences here on Earth. And you can go from just symbology of them to deeper vibrational happenings that happen. So several things that we need to think about here. Number one, typical talk about astrology among people who don't know anything about it is that astrology doesn't predict anything. Well, it doesn't, because that's not its purpose. The purpose of astrology is to study subtle vibrational influences, and that it does very, very well. So, what is subtle vibrational influence? Well, let's talk about it in a metaphorical way. So, say, for example, you need to cross a river, and we're all crossing a river of life. So you may need to, you have a river that may be calm, it may be, not calm, it could be dangerous and have a lot of rapids on it, right? So you may cross it on a comfortable bridge with, with rails and guards, and it could be a very narrow bridge hanging by, a flimsy rope, or it could be just a tree from which you can easily fall into the river, and before you fall into it, you can also, one of the broken branches from the tree can pierce and open up your innards. So all of these things are influences. So when you cross the river, clearly some ways are more dangerous than others, and some rivers are more dangerous than others. All of these rivers can be crossed successfully, but the chance of you having an unfortunate event on a log is higher than if you cross a calm river on a nice sturdy bridge. So that's one of the metaphors. So when someone says that I don't know, a moon is conjunct with with Pluto, it means something. What they're really talking about is that that particular position has a certain influence, and depending on your personality, depending on your inner strength, you will or will not react to it. So they say that Indian astrology is more predictive than Western astrology. I do not know much about it, so I'm not going to comment about it. I can only tell you one thing, is that if you take, for example, Chinese astrology, by the way, I completely forgotten about that. So if you take Chinese astrology, so so I am of a particular Chinese sign, and everybody who were born from, say in my year of birth, they're all supposed to be the same way. Well, yeah, but surely there's lots of variation among these people and their lives, life events, etc., etc. So you need to take care of, you need to take this into account. So when you talk about so-called Western astrology, we have these signs of zodiac signs. I'm a, I don't know, I am a rooster, or I'm a, I don't know, a Taurus, or I am a Virgo, whatever. Again, these are very imprecise. So now if we start talking about very precise, whatever that means, when they say I'm going to make you, a chart, my astrologer friends, they say that your personality may change every 4 minutes. In other words, if you were born, like even just 5 minutes apart from someone else in the same, in the same hospital, you might develop very different. Well, you may have very different influences. One thing that I like to play with, which works for me a lot, is astrology of places. It's called astrocartography. And before I discovered that, I traveled all over the United States and many places in the world, and I found, and I'm very sensitive and quite a bit intuitive, I think. And so what happened is that I found in retrospect that those places which are supposed to be beneficial to me were indeed very beneficial to my moods. In other words, I was really enjoying it. So for example, around Manila and Bangkok, I'm supposed to meet a lot of interesting people and have a very good social life and very good business relationships, which is indeed what has happened. I've met more people in the Philippines who became my friends than in like 2 months than in the whole 40 years I've been in the United States, which says a lot about the culture in the Philippines, a lot about the culture in the United States, and also possibly around astrology. In any case, astrology is a very, very good way to study yourself, because you can say, well, I'm not really a Virgo, even though I was born in the sign of Virgo. I'm not really an Aquarius, even though I was born under the sign of Aquarius, and things of that sort. So it gives you some kind of, you can call it a tool for understanding yourself and understanding your situations in life,
Well,
or not. Go ahead.
I mean, if I may, and this is why I called it edutainment, or infotainment, or because it's sort of informative and it's sort of entertainment. But if you take it too seriously, you can send yourself through a loop. So, for example, even astrocartography, right, or astral cartography, or however you want to pronounce it. Let's say that Dallas is the place for me because of where the stars aligned when I was born and how the stars hit Dallas now. And I'm not picking on Dallas, by the way, I'm just saying in general.
Sure.
And that because of the energy that's coming through the Earth into Dallas and coming down from the stars and planets down onto Dallas, it should be the best place for me to, meet my future whoever partner, or start my business and be most successful, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's my grain of salt I'm throwing into all of it, which is, if you want to do these things, you go do them. The edutainment or infotainment shouldn't be like the thing that motivates you to hold yourself back, or to say, oh, I won't do that until I move there, or I have to save up to go there, or something to that effect.
No, I think that you're right, and there's several aspects that are now emerging for me around astrology and whatnot. So first of all, astrology is an influence, both in terms of its educational, entertainment, and vibrational influences. So you need to test all of these things always. So for example, talking about Dallas, you may go to Dallas and you may discover that you have a particular itch up your or whatever, another regions that completely interfered with your enjoyment, or rather your research, your inquiry into that place. Also, the influence of that place may not emerge until you are there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So all of these things you need to take with a grain of salt. I am one of those people who like to think and inquire rather deeply. And for me, when someone, reads a newspaper, astrology in a newspaper, that's it's not even fun for me because I know how imprecise it is, whatever precision is. So all of these things need to be tested, and this is something that is just, a very good thing for discussion. But there is another side to it, which is probably the most important thing for, certainly my channel and my work, in my life, is that we have overvaluing of intellectual pursuits in the West for sure, in other cultures to an extent as well. What does that mean in English? It means that we believe in intellectual so-called facts, and we tend to denigrate other facts. In other words, we think about the world in a very mechanical, very cold, logical way. And if you live your life out of logic, what you're going to discover is that, well, your life is not going to be worth living unless you are meant to do just that type of experience. But and frankly, like even people who are like highly intellectual, their life happens on an emotional level more so than on an intellectual level, because we experience life, we don't think about life. And astrology certainly helps with that. I tend to like language of astrology more than I should, because it doesn't correspond to how much I know about astrology. I don't know a lot about astrology. So your point is well taken. So should you study yourself? Yes. Should you use astrology? Maybe. Should you test things in your environment, in your life, in whatever? Yes. So and sometimes it may be really obvious what to do. Sometimes it's not obvious what to do. But certainly you shouldn't rely on people who will say, well, you really shouldn't do this, you should do that, based on astrology. But in places like India, where culturally people are very much into astrology, and they have a lot of professional astrologers who basically make their living by by doing astrology. That Indian astrology, in Tibet it's the same way, is very much woven into the cultural mix. It's part of their religion, it's part of their culture, it's part of their diet, it's part of their traditional medical system, all of that. And they've been doing it for the last 5, 6, 7,000 years, for many, many years, whatever it is. It's definitely at least 2 or 3,000 years. So the idea that Westerners say that this is a superstition or edutainment is offensive. I mean, they don't understand that people in 3, 4,000 years have gotten tremendous amount of experience. They know what they're doing. It goes back to specifically medicines. I always laugh about how people say, "Oh, herbs don't work." Yes, they do. They work very well, a lot better than modern medicine. And just because modern medicine does double-blind studies doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about or do or know what they're doing. It's just it has some logic behind it. How many doctors will tell you that half of medical studies are published with foul, bad statistics? They're just basically not valid studies. They're just flat false. And this is not my idea. It's published in major medical journals, this kind of thing. I was just listening to, I mentioned this to you today, this morning. I was listening to this one professor who talks about education, and turns out that a lot of studies on twins, about psychology of twins and the variation of on their success and whatnot, is based on false statistics. Now, I know nothing about those studies, but I have heard this kind of claims many, many times, that people who are into humanities, or people who are in the disciplines which are close to humanities, which definitely social work, psychology, social sciences, they don't know much about statistics, and worse, they usually don't have good mathematical intuition, so they make some horrendous mistakes. And a lot of people like talking about astrologies. I mean, typical example. I'm not going to mention names. An old person goes to a senior center and sees a whole bunch of 90-year-old, women and men, and says, "Oh wow, people live here so long." And then I say, "No, they're not. You just go to a senior center where there's a whole bunch of old people who happen to survive. You need to look at the whole population to know, what the longevity is." So when you talk about astrology, it's the same thing. If you want to make any kind of educated pronouncements about any subject, you need to be educated in that subject enough so that your pronouncements are not laughable. And specifically, so one of the reasons why I like talking about astrology is because this is one of the best ways to find out if people are stupidly intellectual. It's very, very, it's like, and if you start talking about astrology, most people will say, "Oh my God, this guy is, believes in superstition." No, I'm just testing to see whether you're superstitious about science and logic. And
Yeah.
and most people in this culture failed desperately in that, because they have never thought that their logic is faulty. And that could be a subject of our next video, about how people who think that they are, really rational, they're not really rational. They're just commonsensical, and their common sense is not worth a shit. And that's the problem. And anytime anybody starts talking about common sense, I always start, smirking inside. It's like, yeah, right. I want to see how common sense you are. So, and I'm not saying that you should follow astrology. No, 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 no. I'm just saying that anytime you make pronouncements about subjects that you don't know anything about, you should make a disclaimer, say that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just blubbering. I'm just blah blah blahing about it. And I'm certainly not directing it at you. I'm just saying that
No.
it's a common thing, and I know you don't take it this way. So, but it's, that's what it is. I'll let you respond.
Oh, I don't think I have much response to that. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to respond to that.
Yeah. So for example, like, I mean, I find astrocartography fun. I mean, fun. It's it's entertaining for me.
Right.
I like to compare it to how my experience went. So, for example, talking on the negative side, in North India, I'm supposed to have this transformative brewing experiences I never had. I actually enjoyed being in North India, and I don't have enough experience with Indian culture other than North India to make this kind of comparisons. I did notice for myself, for example, that I feel very, very well around Denver in the United States. I feel kind of spaced out and very broody around Moab, which is in Utah, one of my favorite places. But in Salt Lake City, I tend to meet interesting people, and people treat me very, very well. So it's, so I mean, I love Salt Lake City. I always liked it, and I can find many reasons why I liked it, but I just like being there, period. I like being there. And I don't like being on the East Coast, which happens to be astrologically a very, very bad place for me. Everything here is hard and annoying. And then I have just spent 20 years living here.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are obviously many other factors. I mean, I'm certainly not following astrology. There are many reasons for it. I mean, one of the reasons is purely financial. It's like, I had better financial situation, better, living situation here on the East Coast. And, if you want to be rational with astrology, which sounds funny even to talk about, I should have, done my PhD in Philadelphia and then done another PhD in Salt Lake City and another PhD in California. And by that time, I would be half dead or dead and wouldn't have any life left. So it's always very easy to talk, say, well, this is a bad influence on me or good influence on me. Well, you don't really know anything about how you would behave in another place. You can't go back. This is not a computer game. Life is not a computer game. You cannot say, well, I'm going to go back to to level 1 and I'm going to open up not the door number 2, I'm going to open a door number 5 and see what kind of monster hides behind it, or maybe not. So, well, you can do it in small things. I mean, you can, like, if you like traveling to India like I do, I could go to a different town in India. Yeah, I can do that. But like, if you ask me, do you want to live in a particular place in India, that is a very different question from traveling somewhere for a week or two. A huge different, very different question.
Right.
And and I can tell you, like, for example, with India, I can project that I can certainly find a very nice place in India where I'm going to really enjoy living there for a long time. Same thing with the Philippines, but I can't tell it to you about places like, I don't know, Malaysia or Costa Rica. Or Mexico. I mean, I've been to Mexico a couple of times and I really, really enjoyed being there. I just loved it being there. That's not the same thing as going there and living there for a year or 2 or 3 or 10. It's very different, So it's the same thing with, with astrology. I mean, I was supposed to have a really horrendously bad year 2020 because of, something going over my son. And I cannot tell you whether I was more nervous about it because it was happening, on the paper chart, or because it was happening out there in the air, in the sky. Could be both, or not. So I find that astrology of places kind of works for me. It's kind of interesting and entertaining, and I like because I like traveling. But the chart astrology, or when you look at all your planets, I don't find very good correlation between that and my life, and it's probably is there. And I just, at a certain moment in my life, I stopped being. I don't read my astrology except for astrocartography because I find it annoying.
Right.
Anyway. Unless you have a comment, I'm going to finish here this talk.
I think this would be a good place to finish.
Sounds fantastic. You guys have all a very nice day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world. Comment below how much you hate, love astrology, or me, or Mike, and you have all very nice. I think I already said you all have a very nice day. Take care.